Michael Jackson's 1991 album Dangerous stands as one of the most transformative releases in popular music history, fundamentally altering not just the sound of contemporary pop but the entire infrastructure of how music is created, marketed, and consumed. While Jackson's previous works, particularly Thriller and Bad, had established him as the undisputed king of pop, Dangerous represented something far more radical, a complete reinvention that would reshape the music industry's approach to artistry, commerce, and creative control for decades to come. The genesis of this revolutionary album began with a decision that shocked the entertainment world. In 1990, Michael Jackson made the unprecedented choice to sever his highly successful creative partnership with Quincy Jones, the legendary producer who had been instrumental in crafting the sonic landscapes of both Thriller and Bad. This wasn't merely a professional disagreement or creative difference. It was a statement of artistic independence that would reverberate throughout the industry. For nearly a decade, the Jackson-Jones collaboration had been considered untouchable, producing two of the most commercially successful and critically acclaimed albums in music history. Industry insiders, fans, and executives alike assumed this golden partnership would continue indefinitely. However, beneath the surface of their public success, tensions had been quietly building. Jackson, no longer the young artist who had first collaborated with Jones on Off the Wall, had evolved into a global powerhouse with his own distinct vision for his artistic future. He craved more creative control, wanting to move beyond the role of talented performer, taking direction to become the primary architect of his own sound. Quincy Jones, despite his undeniable brilliance and track record, represented an older generation's approach to pop music production. Michael, ever the visionary, was already mentally inhabiting the future of popular music, sensing changes in cultural winds that others hadn't yet recognized. The decision to part ways with Jones was both risky and revolutionary. It meant abandoning a proven formula that had generated unprecedented commercial success for the uncertainty of uncharted creative territory. Most artists in Jackson's position would have continued riding the wave of their established sound, particularly given the massive success of their previous collaborations. But Jackson's artistic instincts told him that staying within familiar boundaries would ultimately limit his growth as an artist and his relevance in a rapidly evolving musical landscape. Jackson's search for a new creative partner led him to Teddy Riley, a young producer who was pioneering a revolutionary new sound called New Jack Swing. Riley represented everything Jones did not. He was young, hungry, street-smart, and intimately connected to the emerging hip-hop culture that was beginning to influence mainstream music. This partnership between Jackson and Riley would prove to be one of the most consequential collaborations in pop music history. Riley brought with him not just technical expertise, but a deep understanding of the cultural shifts happening in urban communities across America. Hip-hop was no longer a niche genre confined to New York streets. It was beginning to influence everything from fashion to language to musical production techniques. Riley understood how to harness this energy and translate it into something that could work within Jackson's established artistic framework while simultaneously pushing him into entirely new sonic territory. When Dangerous was finally released in November 1991, the transformation was immediately apparent. Gone were the glossy, disco-influenced grooves that had characterized Off the Wall or the cinematic funk arrangements that had made Thriller so distinctive. Instead, listeners were confronted with an entirely new sonic palette: punchy, aggressive beats, gritty, industrial-influenced synthesizers, and a rhythmic complexity that felt both raw and sophisticated. From the very first track, Jam, it became clear that Michael Jackson had undergone a complete artistic metamorphosis. The opening moments of Jam served as a declaration of Jackson's new artistic direction. The track featured a hard-hitting drum pattern that borrowed heavily from hip-hop production techniques, layered with synthesizer work that felt more aligned with emerging urban music trends than traditional pop arrangements. Jackson's vocal delivery had also evolved, incorporating more rhythmic complexity and a harder edge that matched the intensity of the production. This wasn't simply an evolution of his previous sound, it was a complete disruption of expectations. Working closely with Teddy Riley, Jackson had tapped directly into what the video describes as the heartbeat of the streets. Riley's New Jack Swing approach created a unique hybrid that combined the percussive intensity of hip-hop with the melodic sophistication of R&B and the harmonic complexity of funk. This fusion created songs that felt simultaneously aggressive and smooth, street-smart and commercially appealing. Tracks like In the Closet and Remember the Time pulsed with a modern, sexually charged energy that was unlike anything in Jackson's previous catalog. Even the album's ballads, such as Keep the Faith, incorporated gospel-influenced production techniques that gave them an emotional weight and spiritual intensity that elevated them beyond typical pop love songs. The significance of this sonic transformation cannot be overstated. Pop music in the early 1990s was still largely segregated along racial and cultural lines, with mainstream pop stars typically maintaining clear boundaries between their music and emerging urban genres like hip-hop. Jackson's decision to fully embrace hip-hop influences at a time when most mainstream artists still kept their distance was both brave and prescient. He understood that the future of popular music lay in breaking down these artificial barriers and creating something that could speak to diverse audiences simultaneously. Jackson's approach on Dangerous involved taking what were essentially underground, street-level sounds and translating them into stadium-ready anthems that could work on a massive scale. The impact of this sonic innovation extended far beyond the immediate success of the album itself. Dangerous essentially created a new blueprint for pop music that artists would follow for the next decade and beyond. Artists like Usher, Destiny's Child, and Justin Timberlake would later build their careers on variations of the sound Jackson and Riley had pioneered. The album proved that pop music could successfully incorporate hip-hop elements without losing its mainstream appeal, opening the door for countless other artists to explore similar fusions. However, the revolutionary nature of Dangerous extended beyond its musical content into the business realm, where Jackson was simultaneously rewriting the rules of artist-label relationships. Before the album even reached store shelves, Jackson had already shattered industry records with a groundbreaking contract negotiation that would reshape how major artists approached their business relationships with record labels. In 1991, just months before Dangerous was released, Jackson signed a contract with Sony Music that was reportedly worth $65 million, making it the most expensive recording contract in music industry history at that time. But the significance of this deal extended far beyond its dollar amount. The contract gave Jackson an unprecedented level of control over virtually every aspect of his musical career, including creative decisions, marketing strategies, and even control over his future catalog. This represented a fundamental shift in the traditional power dynamics between artists and record labels. Historically, record labels held most of the power in artist relationships. They controlled budgets, creative decisions, marketing approaches, and distribution strategies. Artists, even successful ones, were typically expected to follow label directives and work within established parameters. Jackson's Sony deal completely inverted this traditional relationship. Instead of being an employee of the label, Jackson became something closer to a business partner with the freedom to make his own creative and commercial decisions. Sony's willingness to grant Jackson such unprecedented control reflected their understanding of his unique position in the global entertainment marketplace. Jackson wasn't simply a recording artist. He was a complete entertainment brand with influence extending far beyond music into fashion, dance, visual media, and popular culture generally. Sony recognized that maintaining their relationship with Jackson was worth granting him the creative freedom and financial resources necessary to pursue his artistic vision without interference. Jackson leveraged this newfound power and financial backing to fund aspects of his career that previous artists had never been able to control. He invested heavily in elaborate music videos, experimental recording techniques, and comprehensive marketing campaigns that blurred traditional boundaries between music promotion and entertainment spectacle. The Sony deal essentially allowed Jackson to operate as his own entertainment company while still benefiting from the label's distribution and promotional infrastructure. This contract set a new standard for artist negotiations throughout the industry. It demonstrated that artists with sufficient commercial power could demand and receive unprecedented levels of creative control and financial compensation. The deal sent a clear message to other major artists that they could and should view themselves as brands and businesses rather than simply performers working for record labels. This shift in perspective would influence artist negotiations for decades, leading to increasingly complex and artist-favorable contracts throughout the industry. With this new level of creative and financial control, Jackson was able to pursue one of the most innovative aspects of the Dangerous era: the transformation of music videos from simple promotional tools into major entertainment events that could capture global attention and generate significant cultural impact. The concept of music videos as significant cultural events wasn't entirely new. Jackson's Thriller video had already demonstrated the potential for music videos to transcend their promotional origins and become entertainment spectacles in their own right. However, the Dangerous era took this concept to entirely new levels of ambition and global reach. The campaign began with Black or White, which premiered on November 14, 1991, in what was perhaps the most ambitious music video launch in history up to that point. The video was broadcast simultaneously in 27 countries to an estimated audience of 500 million viewers, making it the most watched music video premiere ever recorded. This wasn't simply a music video release, it was a coordinated global media event that required unprecedented international cooperation and marketing coordination. The black or white video itself was designed to be provocative and conversation-generating. It featured groundbreaking morphing technology that seamlessly transformed faces of different ethnicities, creating a visual representation of racial unity that was both technologically impressive and culturally significant. The video concluded with a controversial dance sequence featuring Jackson in an aggressive, sexually charged performance that sparked debates about appropriateness in artistic expression. This controversy wasn't accidental, it was a calculated element designed to generate discussion and extend the video's cultural impact beyond its initial broadcast. Jackson followed Black or White with Remember the Time, which took the concept of cinematic music videos to even greater extremes. Set in ancient Egypt and featuring elaborate sets, costumes, and choreography, the video was more accurately described as a short film than a traditional music video. The production featured major celebrities including Eddie Murphy, Iman, and Magic Johnson, and was directed by John Singleton with choreography by Fatima Robinson. With a budget reportedly exceeding $2 million, it became one of the most expensive music videos ever produced. These videos represented Jackson's understanding that the music industry was evolving beyond traditional boundaries between different forms of entertainment media. He recognized that in an increasingly visual culture, music videos weren't simply promotional materials but were becoming products in their own right that fans would watch, discuss, and experience as complete entertainment offerings. Jackson's approach to music videos during the Dangerous era established new expectations for visual content throughout the music industry. After Dangerous, major artists began thinking of their videos as major creative and commercial investments rather than simple promotional necessities. Artists from Madonna to Beyoncé would later adopt Jackson's approach of creating elaborate, high-budget visual experiences that could generate significant cultural attention and commercial value independent of the songs they were promoting. The success of Jackson's video strategy also demonstrated the growing importance of visual media in music marketing. Labels began allocating larger budgets to video production and developing more sophisticated approaches to video distribution and promotion. The concept of video premieres as major media events became standard practice throughout the industry, with labels recognizing that a successful video could significantly extend an album's commercial lifespan and cultural impact. While Jackson was revolutionizing the business and creative aspects of his music, he was simultaneously navigating an increasingly complex relationship with media attention that would become another defining characteristic of the Dangerous era. By the early 1990s, Jackson's fame had evolved beyond traditional celebrity into something approaching mythological status, with media coverage that was both obsessive and frequently invasive. The media's fascination with Jackson extended far beyond his music into speculation about his personal life, physical appearance, and private behavior. Tabloid publications generated countless stories, many of which were either unverified or entirely fabricated, about every aspect of Jackson's existence. Rather than attempting to hide from this attention or respond defensively, Jackson developed a sophisticated strategy of using media obsession as a marketing tool. Jackson understood that in a media-saturated culture, mystery and unpredictability could be more powerful than constant accessibility. He began carefully controlling his public appearances and statements, creating an aura of enigma that made every public moment feel significant and newsworthy. This approach turned routine promotional activities into major cultural events that generated extensive media coverage and public discussion. The visual presentation of Dangerous itself reflected this strategy of controlled mystery. The album cover was designed as a complex puzzle filled with surreal imagery, hidden symbols, and visual references that invited interpretation and analysis. Fans and critics spent considerable time and energy attempting to decode the cover's meanings, generating ongoing discussion and engagement with the album that extended far beyond its musical content. Jackson's public appearances during this period were carefully choreographed to maximize their impact and maintain his mysterious persona. His performance at the 1993 Super Bowl halftime show became legendary partly because of his decision to stand completely motionless for nearly 2 full minutes after taking the stage, creating an almost unbearable tension that had the entire stadium and television audience completely focused on his every movement. When he finally began performing, the release of that tension created an emotional and energetic climax that elevated the entire performance. This approach to media relations represented a sophisticated understanding of how celebrity functioned in modern media culture. Jackson recognized that in an age of constant information and entertainments, scarcity and mystery could be more valuable than abundance and accessibility. By controlling the flow of information about himself and creating an aura of unpredictability around his public appearances, he was able to maintain intense public interest and ensure that every aspect of his career generated maximum attention and cultural impact. The success of Jackson's media strategy during the Dangerous era influenced how other major artists approached their relationships with press and public attention. The concept of carefully controlled mystery as a marketing tool became a standard approach for many artists, who recognized that strategic scarcity could be more effective than constant promotion in maintaining public interest and generating cultural significance. Jackson took his artistic and commercial innovations on a global scale with the Dangerous World Tour, which launched in June 1992 and represented perhaps the most ambitious and technologically sophisticated concert tour that had been attempted up to that point. Over the course of 69 shows across 27 countries, the tour reached more than 3.5 million fans and established new standards for live entertainment production and international touring logistics. The Dangerous World Tour wasn't simply a series of concerts. It was a completely immersive theatrical experience that combined music, dance, visual effects, and narrative storytelling into a cohesive artistic statement. Jackson had complete creative control over every aspect of the production, from costume design and choreography to lighting schemes and stage construction. This level of artistic control allowed him to create a live experience that was entirely consistent with his creative vision and artistic standards. Every element of the tour was carefully designed to contribute to a larger narrative and emotional journey. The staging featured elaborate sets that could be reconfigured for different songs, creating visual environments that enhanced the musical and emotional content of each performance. The lighting design used cutting-edge technology to create atmospheric effects that transformed the concert venue into different imagined spaces throughout the show. The choreography integrated Jackson's legendary dance abilities with group performances that created powerful visual tableaux supporting the music's emotional and rhythmic content. The tour was also notable for its groundbreaking corporate sponsorship arrangement with Pepsi, which represented a new model for how major tours could be financed and promoted. Rather than simply providing financial backing, Pepsi became integrated into the tour's marketing and promotional strategy, creating a partnership that benefited both Jackson's artistic goals and Pepsi's commercial objectives. This arrangement demonstrated how corporate sponsorship could enhance rather than compromise artistic integrity when managed with appropriate sophistication and creative control. The international scope of the Dangerous World Tour reflected Jackson's understanding of his truly global audience and his commitment to reaching fans throughout the world. The tour included stops in countries and regions that major Western artists had rarely visited, helping to establish touring models that other artists would later follow. The production's technical complexity required unprecedented logistical coordination to transport and reconstruct the elaborate staging in venues around the world. The commercial and critical success of the Dangerous World Tour established new expectations for major touring productions throughout the music industry. Artists began approaching their tours as complete artistic statements rather than simple promotional activities, investing more heavily in staging, choreography, and technological innovation. The tour demonstrated that live performance could be a significant revenue generator and artistic medium that was equal in importance to recorded music. The lasting impact of Dangerous on the music industry extends far beyond its immediate commercial success, though the numbers themselves were certainly impressive. The album sold over 30 million copies worldwide, making it one of the best-selling albums of the 1990s and cementing Jackson's position as a global superstar. However, the album's true significance lies in how it fundamentally altered the landscape of popular music for the decades that followed. Musically, Dangerous broke down barriers that had previously seemed insurmountable in mainstream pop music. Jackson and Teddy Riley's successful integration of hip-hop production techniques into pop music demonstrated that these genres could work together in ways that enhanced, rather than compromise, their individual strengths. This breakthrough opened the door for countless other artists to explore similar fusions, leading to the development of entirely new subgenres and approaches to pop music production. The influence of Dangerous can be heard clearly in the work of artists who would dominate popular music in the following decades. Justin Timberlake's Justified, Usher's Confessions, and much of Beyoncé's early solo work all show clear influences from the sound Jackson and Riley pioneered. Even contemporary artists continue to draw inspiration from the album's approach to blending different musical styles and production techniques. The album's impact on music video production and marketing continues to influence how artists approach visual content. The concept of music videos as major entertainment events that can generate significant cultural attention and commercial value became standard practice throughout the industry. Artists now routinely invest heavily in video production and use video releases as major promotional events that can extend an album's commercial lifespan and cultural impact. From a business perspective, Dangerous demonstrated that artists with sufficient commercial power could demand unprecedented levels of creative control and financial compensation from record labels. Jackson's Sony contract established new precedents for artist negotiations that influenced contract structures throughout the industry. The concept of artists as brands and business entities rather than simply performers became widely accepted, leading to increasingly sophisticated approaches to career management and commercial strategy. The album also proved that artistic risk-taking could be commercially rewarded, encouraging other artists to pursue creative directions that might have seemed too experimental or uncommercial under previous industry standards. Jackson's success with such a dramatically different sound demonstrated that audiences were ready for innovation and that commercial success didn't require adherence to established formulas. Perhaps most importantly, Dangerous established that an artist could successfully reinvent themselves artistically without losing their core identity or commercial appeal. Jackson proved that evolution and growth were not only possible, but necessary for long-term artistic relevance. This lesson has influenced countless artists who have used Jackson's example as a model for their own creative development and career management. The album's integration of different musical cultures and styles also helped establish popular music as a more inclusive and globally minded medium. Jackson's respectful but innovative use of hip-hop influences helped break down racial and cultural barriers in mainstream music, contributing to the development of a more diverse and integrated popular music landscape. In conclusion, while Thriller may remain Michael Jackson's most commercially successful and culturally recognized album, Dangerous represents his most innovative and industry-changing work. It marked the moment when Jackson stopped playing by the music industry's established rules and began rewriting them according to his own artistic vision and commercial ambitions. The album's influence on musical production, visual presentation, business practices, and artistic approach continues to shape popular music more than 3 decades after its release. Dangerous was ultimately more than an album. It was a comprehensive reimagining of what popular music could be and how it could function in modern culture.